Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Evolve webinar. Sorry about that. What's next in event tech for associations and how much of it actually matters? Um, what an interesting topic. Really looking forward to this. We've got a couple of great speakers today. Um, the session will be recorded as usual. Please use the chat for comments or the Q&A to ask the panel any questions. We do encourage you to ask questions. The webinar is better if we are led by you, our audience. So what are we talking about today? Event technology is moving fast. There's no question about it. And associations are being presented with more and more tools, platforms, and promises than ever before. We've got AI, we've got data, we've got automation, integration, and these are all things which apparently are must-haves. But it's not always clear what delivers value or adds cost and complexity. More and more, we're hearing that teams are feeling pressure to invest in new tech to keep up. But when budgets, capacity, and skills are already stretched, and we're having to do with more with less. And it raises some big questions. What really matters? What can wait? And how do we make smart decisions without being led by hype? So let's find out. We've brought together a panel of experts who I will introduce you to shortly. But first of all, we're going to go for two quick polls, as we do usually. If we could have the polls up, please, Izzy. The first question is, how many events tech platforms are you currently dealing with? This might be also called your tech stack, which we'll come on to explain a bit later. So options are none, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, or 7 or more. And when we talk about tech platforms, that's everything from website, CRM, anything you're using to interact with your event. That might be your website, your CRM, your registration site, any apps, any voting software, that sort of thing. And then the second question is, how would you describe your organization's current use of event technology? Is it very basic? Is it somewhat developed or well developed? Voting should be open now, so please do complete the polls in your own time. So on to our first guest. I'd like to welcome to the stage Johnny D. Martinez. Johnny is the head of partnerships at Crowdcoms, who are our first Evolve community partner and has an impressive 14-year track record in events and technology, which only 21 is quite only 21 years old is quite an achievement, Johnny. He's a regular contributor to publications like Exhibition News, Conference News, and Convene magazine. He's also been recognized for his talent and impact, earning a spot in the prestigious PCMA 20 in their 20s class, and the Exhibition News Exhibition News 30 under 30 class in 2017. Welcome, Johnny. I think this is your first Evolve webinar, so thank you for joining us.
It is indeed. Thank you for having me. And what an introduction. Wow.
um, so the question for you, where is the impetus for all this software development coming from? Is it just because software companies can, so they're doing, or is there science? Is there science behind this?
And when you say impetus, you mean from the vendor perspective?
I guess so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I think there is, we look at the need on the other side, certainly, because for us to come up with solutions, for us to create a product, there has to be a requirement, and we need to be able to provide a solution, to that requirement. And it's funny, I was talking to my colleague Henry about this earlier, um, because I think, when we talk about the impetus for software development in the association event space, I think it isn't technology for its own sake. It's the pressure, that organizations face from multiple directions. And you already touched on some key factors during your intro.
Mm,
Um, Henry was saying to me, money is, the number one thing, driving a lot of these decisions. Associations certainly, they're under financial pressure. And I think it's because events are no longer just member services. They're major revenue drivers. So, they're looking at ways to monetize engagement year round,
mm,
prove ROI to sponsors and exhibitors, and that often proves, very difficult. And you know, we look at ways to diversify income, beyond memberships or beyond a single annual conference. So, similar to what you guys do, with Evolve, having an in-person event, having webinars,
mm.
having different touch points to engage the community and the membership throughout the year. Um, but I think there's also a need for efficiency. Um, so, most associations operate, and smaller organizations, non-for-profits, charities, they operate with very lean teams,
Yeah.
but they have to deliver increasingly complex programs. Um, and technology is being developed to automate admin, reduce manual processes, but also allow organizations to scale.
Yeah.
How do we grow in many ways without having to increase the headcount?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Johnny. Really interesting insights there. My next guest, someone known to me very well, my colleague, John Richards, who leads the delivery of projects and events at Brightelm. He's built his career around the planning and delivery of successful events. Spent the majority of his professional working life in events, including 5 years an events manager for a membership association before joining Brightelm around 5 years ago, I think. It gives him a strong understanding of the operational and strategic challenges that associations face. I certainly agree with that. John's currently undertaking a review of the event technology marketplace. Which we talked about ending at some point, but it never seems to end because there are constant evolutions and changes. And to really help us approach working with event tech to better support events, members, and wider organizational goals. Thank you for joining us, John. Is this your first webinar guest? Your first webinar as a
Yes,
guest?
I'm usually behind the scenes, so this is quite yeah, quite a gear shift actually.
Well, I'm really pleased. And last January we had in January's webinar we had Jack and Jack. Today we've got Johnny and John. So we're going to try and have some different names in March's webinar. John, from what you're seeing in the market, what's useful and what's not?
Yeah, so I've kept this to a couple of things for each. There's two really useful things that I've been seeing recently. So the first one, we're going to talk a lot about AI, and a lot of the things that I've found useful are related to AI. Um, Benchmarking tools. So I think one of the biggest challenges for associations is actually measuring success and actually seeing if we're taking an annual conference um, as an example, is actually looking each year and seeing, was this year a success based on what we did last year, and actually reporting accurately on that. And I think this is where AI can really come in handy. And I'm seeing more and more tools where if you're setting up events on a piece of software, and that AI element is then taking that data, you can then, when you're repeating that event in the future, look back and see where you were in terms of delegate numbers at that point in the year, where you were at in terms of exhibitor sales, or even, which I'm especially interested from an agency perspective, even thinking about how much time you're spending on certain services or how much resource you need at a certain point so you can identify those pinch points. So all of that is really hard to do without AI, I think. So I think that is something that I'm really excited to see in the future. But I know it's already being kind of built and used at the moment. So yeah, I think that's a huge one. The other one is delegate support. So I think in this day and age, everybody is using things like ChatGPT, but even just Google search. Like if people want to find out the answer to a question, they will type something, they will search it, they will not seek it out. People don't read things in the same way that they used to, and I think we need to be adapting to that new way that people are using the internet generally for our association conferences. So in the simplest form, we need AI to be answering the simple questions for people. And then when you need a human to help you, they can come in at a certain point. What we don't need is humans doing the first bit anymore. And I think people are used to that now. Most of the kind of bigger companies, bigger organizations in the world outside of events are doing that. So there's a lot we can learn there. Two things that aren't useful. So first one that I've noticed a couple of occasions, AI tools for email drafting and content writing being built into platforms. So I think this is a feature. I've seen it twice. There might be other platforms doing it. I understand I understand why they are being built, but I think for me personally as an event planner, um, I use a couple of different large language models, LLMs. Everybody has their preference. They have different values depending on what you're using them for. I think a lot of people will just, lean to using something like ChatGPT over using something built into their event platform, and they'll be more comfortable doing that rather than using something that's built in. And in my opinion, I think there's time, energy, and money being spent on creating these kind of email template AI builders, and I just don't think that needs to happen, in my opinion. I think there are other things out there doing it better, and we don't need to start integrating those. You can copy and paste an email in from ChatGPT into your email builder in your software. So that's the first one that I've noticed. And the second one, which I don't know if controversial is the right word, but session mapping using AI. So this is a really interesting feature that I keep seeing coming up more and more, is actually taking a program and AI suggesting, oh, you should go to this, you should go to that, or this might be of interest, that kind of thing. My worry with that is we're taking away people needing to read programs properly, and people could be at risk of missing things that are really valuable that that hasn't realized would be valuable. So I worry the direction that tool is taking us in, where programs are being written for people and people aren't actually taking the time to read it. Sorry, that was quite fast, but those are my points.
That's a great intro, John. Thank you. We'll bring on our final panelist now, Adam Parry. Welcome, Adam. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, I should say to you, as you've recently relocated to Dubai. Adam is a founder, researcher, and content creator, and one of the leading voices in the events industry, with over 2 decades of experience building conferences, producing original research. And media tech. He brings a unique perspective on where technology and human experience intersect, and probably best known in the UK as a show organizer for Event Tech Live. Thanks for joining us, Adam. Really appreciated. What do you predict coming to the market in the next 5 years?
I'm going to start off with saying that predictions are dangerous, right? Because there's been some very famous predictions in the past, like we're not going to use mobile phones and things like that in the future. So I think when it comes to technology, there's probably a ton of different things that I could suggest that are coming down the line. But I think actually for us as an industry, one of the things that I will predict is the rise of the event technologist, or a keen interest in companies having or hiring people with a lot of tech skill around them. Now, tech skill is nothing new. We often look for, I mean, I've not seen a request for somebody that knows how to use Excel for a long, long time when it comes to a job application. But I can certainly see in our industry, there is a rise of event tech. There's multiple platforms. There's now point solutions quite often for very specific aspects of event production or audience engagement or exhibitor engagement, sponsor engagement, things like that. And I think, just like John, there's going to be that need and desire for people to come to event businesses knowing and understanding how to put these platforms to best use, how to work with companies like crowdcoms to really maximize the investments and get the best out of them. And probably even so more so, and maybe even in parallel and adjacent to that, I think we'll actually see the rise of somebody, whether they would be titled the data analyst or not, but I think there's somebody within event businesses that will be that business analyst looking at how events are performing and being able to present that back to clients and customers and make data-led decisions more than just kind of like, how does everybody think it went? Maybe even the kind of the post-show reporting, the survey goes away because they already understand how it went. They don't need to ask people the kind of the standard questions and stuff. So I think that's my prediction. I think we will see lot more desire for people to come into businesses or at least upskill within existing roles to be able to get the use. The challenge is we need to encourage the industry and employers and people to not only give people the time and the space to learn, but also maybe invest in those people so they can learn. Because often I feel like technology is just thrown at people and it's kind of like, let's figure it out as we go along.
Thanks, Adam. And it is hard, the investment in time. There's two investments in event technology, isn't there? There's time and money. And actually, from a monetary perspective, I think I'm seeing event tech start to reduce in price. Certainly, I'm not seeing with the odd exception, I'm not seeing the tens and tens of thousands of pounds for small association events being quoted at I was before. But yeah, so the monetary investment is more, I guess, more justifiable nowadays given the time saving, but actually the time to pick up and make the most of those platforms, I think, is the real challenge. So let's have just a reminder, please, our audience, please do ask questions of our panel. They're here to give their advice and professional experience. We'll have a look at the poll results. First of all, so poll number one was event tech. How many event tech platforms are you currently dealing with? So that's surprising. Some said none. We had 17 responses. 1 to 3 were, sorry, 59%. I'm reading this the wrong way around. 59% were 1 to 3, which is, I guess, about average. 12% were 7 plus or more. That's seems to me quite extreme. I wonder, Adam, I wonder
Don't ask.
don't ask. Okay. I think all three of you, I'm interested in your opinions on this because 7 plus seems an awful lot given is it an awful lot or are APIs now so prevalent, are open APIs so prevalent now across platforms that is achievable? Who wants to go first?
I'm gonna say 7 would be a dream for me because I think I deal with about 20. And that's just event tech in the lead up and around event tech live. But we are a trade show, so we're slightly different to maybe what some associations here might deal with. But 7 doesn't surprise me. And I think, if we ran this poll again, maybe next year, I think we'd see some of those numbers shift into the 4 to 6 and the 7 plus as well. When you look at things like, it doesn't take much if you're using, unless you're using an all-in-one platform like Crowdcoms, maybe you're using a preferred vendor for an event app, a different one for registration. Maybe you've got some kind of closed captioning on site, translation. You've got some kind of polling or Q&A solution, things like that. All of a sudden, you've got 4 or 5 just there, simply in just a few tiny aspects of, maybe using facial photo amplification for a sponsor or something like that. All of a sudden, you're not far off that 7 straight away with some few event tech pieces, which again is one of the reasons maybe to go with an all-in-one solution to kind of condense that down, so you're only dealing with one portal.
And Johnny, I'm interested. So I'd like your opinion on that, but also your opinion on the zero. And perhaps actually we need to ask the people anonymously. They can post in the chat why they're a zero at the moment. That would be really interesting. Johnny,
Yeah.
seven plus platforms.
I don't find it utterly surprising. I mean, it does depend on, the tech stack, the needs, and the data processing, in that specific organization. We know, I mean, we're very transparent about this. We don't do it all. There are aspects, especially when it comes to, scientific content management, abstract management, for example. We partner with, with certain vendors, suppliers that are good at doing that, and this is why integrations are so important. And having, a sort of robust API facility. And this is one of the things that I think quite early on when you're having conversations, when you're scoping and when you're going out there, when you're shopping around, you're looking for, your ideal event tech vendor. You need to ask, these questions, how flexible the platform is. Can it connect, with other facilities? Do you already have an integration with Salesforce? Do you already have an integration with Microsoft Dynamics? Is key, because yes, a lot of associations will have a CRM or association management system, and that needs to be connected to a registration facility, the mobile app, and then if there is a learning platform, that's another added element. So it depends on the activities and the events and the things that are offered to the community. Really, when I read zero, I was like, that's an ideal client for us.
Yeah, I see that. But one person did put in a question. They pressed zero by mistake. So
Right.
so sorry about that. John, I'm kind of interested in your thoughts about the next question. How would you describe your organization's current use of event technology? 53% said very basic, 35% somewhat developed, and 12% well developed. I guess I'm interested in your opinion and your advice to those who are the use is very basic. Why do you think that is basic? Do you think it's a lack of appetite to explore, or perhaps a lack of resources, as Adam was saying, in terms of time and money?
Yeah, I think it's a really good one. I think a lot of platforms do offer very comprehensive training, and I think that is essential. But the challenge is time, and actually, usually for an association to procure a piece of event tech, it's in response to need, as Johnny's already kind of outlined quite neatly. So the biggest challenge is you've got small teams who are looking to event tech to save them time, to save them efficiencies, to deliver value quickly, and they're doing it with limited time. So there's a bit of an irony there that they're bringing in a piece of software to save them time, but it takes a long time for people to get to the point where they are experts in that technology. And I think speaking from experience, and I think from other event managers out there, I think most of your valuable learning comes from experience and comes from breaking things, trying to make things work. And the only way you really get that is by running a congress or running something complex on an event platform. My research project over the last 6 months or however long it's been has been trying to get under the bonnet of loads of different platforms. And in a lot of cases, I get off meetings and I think, I get it, but also I need to run something on it. I need to actually give it a really good case study. And I think that is the biggest that is the biggest challenge for learning. You can do the crash course, you can get the digital certificate at the end, but until you experience it, which I think is events management generally, until you really live and breathe it, you don't know if that software is the perfect solution. So I think that's a huge challenge. And I'm sorry, I'm not coming here with a solution really, but I think the people who've probably come in with very basic, they might be at the beginning where they've maybe just acquired a piece of software, or they're only scratching the surface of a piece of software that they're paying for. My advice would be have a conversation with your software provider, talk to them about what the goals are, what the ambitions are for the event, because there might be things that the software can do that you just didn't know about because you haven't had the time to start building those things in software because your event is in a couple of months, or so yeah, a key thing for me, just keep talking to your provider, keep talking to your partner, because it's in their interest to make sure that you know how to use their software. So yeah, I think that's but I'm not too surprised at those scores actually. Not too surprised.
I'll come to you just a moment, Adam. I can see you're ready to speak. Izzy just had a message to say that the chat is disabled. So could you have a look at enabling that, and then just let us know when that's done. Thank you, Adam. Sorry, you had a point to make.
I just think what Jonathan's saying is really important, but I do see a way that event technology companies can help with this, and I'm sure it's being explored already. It's just probably not at the stage where it's out there. We're all working already in our chosen, large language model, whether that's a Claude or a Chat GPT or a Gemini, etc. And a big change in shift in my productivity has been the fact that I now have my LLM connected through model context protocols into all of these other systems. So I don't actually have to leave that ecosystem in order to enact on those others. But one of the other major benefits is that LLM now knows intrinsically how that platform works. So if I want to understand how I need to do something or get from A to Z, it can tell me and it can guide me through that process, and it can even support me in getting it done. So while I might currently be suggesting that I need to go to FAQs or read documentation or even maybe ring a support person or a customer service person if I'm struggling, and maybe even paying for setup support and things like that. I think through that technology, and that technology exists now, it just needs to be connected up to our event technology platforms. That is a real future that we could get to quite quickly within the next 12, 18 months, where the LLMs are guiding us through and supporting us the process of setting these things up and getting the best out of them.
I think that's a really good point, Adam. The other thing I was going to say, just to give my own opinion on this, is that it's very easy to get overwhelmed by event tech. There's a lot on the marketplace. And actually, I think it's really important for an organization to do a needs assessment, first of all, and identify areas of their event ecosystem, which is the area that would benefit most by new event tech, and start there rather than thinking about moving and embracing everything straight away, because it can be overwhelming. And to John's point as well, some of the platforms, the best platforms, have there's no such thing as a perfect platform, and they take a lot of understanding to a deeper level. And really, my advice is become an expert on one. Choose a part of your organization that can be solved by one. Choose one, become an expert in that. Once you've mastered that and you feel comfortable, then start looking at, okay, what's the next phase, and map it out as a project over 2 to 3 years. And because the nature of all of our businesses, events organizations are long term, it can be a long time between when you implement a change in software and seeing the results of that. Registration platform, for example, it could be 6-7 months, even longer. So it really is important to take your time. We have a question. So which department, it's a very interesting question actually. Which departments or roles do you see leading the charge for an association to embrace event tech? For example, sales, marketing, or operations? And do they actually end up being the department or team member who sees the most value from what they invest in? Or do other teams' users unexpectedly become a bigger advocate? Goodness, that's like a dissertation question. There's a lot there. Let's unpack it. First of all, Johnny, I think you're probably the best. Can we have that question back, please, Izzy?
I was going to say.
Because I've thank you so much. I think I'll start with you actually, Johnny, about the first question, because actually as a software provider, you'll see this. Which
Mhm.
departments do you see leading the charge for an association to embrace event tech?
Yeah, I would say it certainly depends on what the priority is, what the next goal is for the association. Something I see now very often at different organizations, associations, but also corporates, is that there is an individual, at least an individual or a team that is responsible for looking after and managing the tech stack. Um, so they push for uh, structuring, the data processing, within, the different activities that are organized by the organization. I've often seen, and well, I say this with all honesty because we were working with an organization recently, and the needs changed internally, and uh, it was led by procurement actually. So the events team, they had a number of ideas around what they wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve, but procurement thought, let's get a little bit creative and let's introduce um, a few platforms or technologies that may help us gain more members. And in that sense, if you're a local organization, if you're a national association and you're looking to attract more international delegates, more international members, then uh, you think about organizing more online, virtual, hybrid activities. So you expand, the membership not just the community that you already have, but you look at, what you can do to enter new markets, attract, new individuals, perhaps, students or, specialities that, weren't considered initially. So yeah, I mean, it does depend, but I would say often procurement, often the events team internally itself. Sometimes is the CEO, he's decided that, he's just seen something gold and shiny, and it's time to have a change.
Hmm. I think I've seen the flip side of that as well, where events teams want to embrace event tech, but actually they're being stopped by doing it because the association has invested in a CRM that should do everything.
Yeah.
And as with most kind of what I would call 360-degree environments, whether that's association management or whether that's events, they're good at a certain average. So they do everything averagely. Some things they'll do better than others. But I know we have clients on this call who are forever frustrated by the events part of their CRM because it's so limited. It sells tickets and that's about it. But it doesn't do that very well, and they're limited to using their own. Like their main event is contained within the CRM of the association's website, but never gets outside of that, so never has its own life, I guess.
Mm.
And I think that's where the challenge can be in the event tech and association tech. They as ecosystems they kind of overlap, but you can't beat an association managed software will never beat event tech. it can't, because that's not its purpose. And so I think there is I would suggest for most associations there is a strong business case for investing in their own event tech as well, but it's down to writing a good business case for it sometimes, I think, and
Yeah.
identifying what will happen if we go down this route. The other part of this question was who ends up being the department or team member which sees the most value from what is invested in, or do the other team's users unexpectedly become a bigger advocate? I think this is really interesting, John Richards. I would say ultimately sometimes the membership team can become the biggest benefactor of good event tech, because they get so much rich, if it's set up correctly, they can get so much rich data from people attending events, understanding what sessions they're attending in events as well. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I try and think of event tech in two different compartments almost. You've got the element which is the attendee facing stuff. You've got your app, you've got your website, how people actually interact with your event, and then you've got the back office stuff. You've got registration, you've got the data reporting, all of the stuff that the operations team, from my perspective anyway, I think all of that stuff is essential, and I couldn't do my job without it now, and I don't know how I used to do it with Excel. Um, so I think this kind of, you can split up into two departments as well, because you've got the marketing, you've got membership, and all of that front-facing stuff. That's only going to make your event more shiny. It's going to make your event look better. The impression of your event is only going to look better if your attendee app works really well and it looks great, your website looks great, all of that stuff. And actually, that's, in my opinion, that's where the business case comes in for when you're talking to your senior leaders in the organization. You can say, we want our event to have this impression and it will drive numbers up because this is the value that this event tech is going to bring in. So that's the business case. And I think that's how you get event tech over the line in a lot of ways, because money talks. But actually, all of the other stuff, so the nuts and bolts of the registration platform and the thing that the project manager, the event managers use day in, day out, that's the real value. And you only start to see that when you start looking at data and measuring success and all those other tools. And that then comes back into the marketing team. So everybody is benefiting, but at different points in the life cycle. I think I've always been on the ops side, and I can talk for a long time about the benefits of event tech, which attendees really don't see. But the efficiency savings are incredible. But again, efficiency is intangible in a lot of ways. It's a very difficult thing to measure sometimes. So when you're talking about a business case for event tech and who is actually benefiting, it's harder than if you say, well, actually, if we get this piece of event tech software, we will be able to sell more tickets because it does this, this, and that. It will give us a virtual platform. We can sell tickets for X amount of money and make it a hybrid event. All this kind of stuff, which is very easy to digest. I think that's the business case. But from ops, a lot of it is actually essential stuff that every event manager should have access to now.
So a very quick question for all three of you, and bearing in mind the subject of the webinar is what are we looking for in event tech over the next 5 years, and how much of it will be really useful. So the question is, if budgets are tight, where would you prioritize event tech investment and why? And I'm going to look for very quick answers. I'm going to start with Johnny, and I'll come to John, then I'll come to Adam.
So we're talking about where to focus on when the budget is tight.
Yeah.
Is that's what we're talking about.
Okay, another way to ask it is, if you had to choose one thing to start with, what would it be?
That's a great question. Um, I would probably, 'cause at the end of the day, I have to look, and this is why we use different tools internally to understand where a lot of our time goes to, especially when we support different clients, but also when we understand what clients go through, a lot of that repetitive admin, a lot of I don't know if you guys have heard of the Eisenhower matrix, but there is a quadrant in that matrix, which is called delegate or automate. And at the end of the day, the technology should be there to make our life easier. So, people often think about, money, and that is a priority, but whatever saves me time, at the end of the day, time equals money. So whatever saves me time, whatever helps me do my job quicker, better, faster, I would probably focus on those things. But also certainly, whatever allows me to provide an enhanced experience, for my members, for my delegates. Um, One thing that we focus on a lot right now is personalization. So, we try to look at ways to make sure the member, the delegates feels like, this is a tailored experience for them. And that their interests, have been taken into account. There's no point having a registration, a data capture form, with lots of fields. What are we going to do with, that information? And I think, data capturing can be so complex. And that in itself, I would say, what can you do to make it easier for yourself, but also for your attendee.
Thanks,
Um,
Johnny. Very quickly, 30 seconds, John.
Yeah, so two things. You need a really good website. That's the first thing your attendees will see. That's the thing that sells your event. Never underestimate the power of a good FAQs page. And the second thing is registration. So this is your back office. So if you have a complex association event with multiple tickets, all that kind of stuff, you need a good, solid, robust registration platform for data capture, for sending comms, for tracking success. And yeah, that will allow you to then benchmark your event in the future. And it will also save you hours and hours of time if your registration platform is set up and working really well.
Thanks, John. And Adam. Adam, you're on mute at the moment.
There we go. I would say controversial. I would say absolutely nothing new until you've taken whatever budget is available, invested it in the team and the staff to ensure that you fully understand that you're maximizing every ounce of the tech that you've already got, especially considering the answers that we got earlier from the audience. And then once you've gone through that process, you'll have a really good understanding of what the investment should go into. And that might be going out to market and RFPing for a platform or an existing technology and replacing that and just smoothing that process and upping it by 10, 15%. I think there's so many times we kind of look at shiny new objects before we've really looked at what we've got in an existing ecosystem.
Thank you, Adam. Great comments. Thank you all for the responses to those questions. Izzy, if we could have the slides back up, please. So some of you will be new to Evolve. Evolve is a community of in-house association event professionals. We have a webinar every month on a micro topic such as this. We are just about to launch Evolve Grow, which will be a dedicated conference in July for sales and marketing. We had Evolve Live last month, where the community came together to discuss really finding out how to make their events better, but also how to it was about connecting with each other as well, and creating a sense of community out of, for some of us who really do work independently and feel stuck in silos sometimes. We will be moving to free subscription in the second quarter. It's not going to cost you anything, but it will involve a subscriber login, and we'll be sending you information on how to do that soon. And then that will give you access to other functions which are coming in the future too. We'd also like to thank the panelists today. They give up their time. So please do, if you like what any of them have said, please do interact with them. Sorry, I've gone one step too far. Our next webinar, 19th of March, will be about developing your events career in associations. And we've got some great speakers lined up for that to be announced in the next couple of days. Sorry, Izzy, next slide, please. Thank you. Please do interact with our speakers today. You've got Adam's slide up there. We will send out the link to the video and the links to these in the email afterwards as well. So don't worry too much about reacting to these quickly. Johnny's company, Crowdcoms, as I said, which are a community partner of ours, and then Brightelm, who is my company and is the sponsor of Evolve. You can find out more about what we do there. We don't have time for one last quick question or final thoughts from the panel, because sadly we've run out of time. We do like running on schedule. So thanks to the panel, to Johnny, John, and Adam for your time this morning. Thank you for Izzy, our event manager, and also our Evolve marketing coordinator as well, for bringing the audience to us today. Thank you, our audience, for attending too. We literally can't do it without you. At the end of the session, there will be a very quick evaluation form. Please do complete it and tell us what's bugging you at the moment and what subjects you would like us to cover in future webinars. If we understand your problems, we can help provide solutions for them. We'll send out a link to the recording as usual tomorrow. Thank you very much for attending today. We'll see you all soon.